The pulsating red light atop the Empire State Building, a beacon above the city, as unmistakable these days as the state of emergency on the city streets below, as the nation's largest city has been silenced, except for the near constant wail of sirens taking patients to city hospitals. Good evening, day 1167 of this Trump administration, 217 days to go until the presidential election. If you have not yet experienced hard times in your life or in the community where you live, it became increasingly clear today that this country is indeed headed for very hard times. The United States set a new single-day record for coronavirus deaths today. And one prominent White House correspondent came away from the long White House briefing tonight saying the president seems scared. Inside, and indeed, the president, darker in tone and demeanor, warned a surge is coming. He said the next 2 weeks will be very tough. He called the coronavirus a plague. He went on to assign blame, however, give voice to his own victimization, and attempted to change recent history. For starters, he said, for whatever reason, New York got off to a late start, then added about New York and with a straight face, you've seen what happens when you get off to a late start. About ventilators, he said his team has done a great job. He said some people frankly think they need them and they don't need them. He relitigated his impeachment at today's coronavirus briefing, called it a hoax a couple more times, complained about Comey and McCabe again. He indicated if he downplayed the virus early on, it's because he wants to give people hope. Quote, I knew it could be horrible, and I knew it could be maybe good. Nobody knew it was so contagious. And about the rolling crisis that New York is living with, he said, New York has a lot of ventilators. He said, with some people, no matter what you do, it's never enough. And about New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo, he said, quote, I got him a lot of things. He hit pay dirt. An estimated 80% of us are living under some form of stay-at-home order, still not the state of Florida. The major news out of today's briefing in the West Wing was that we're looking at the potential for close to 250,000 deaths. Here is what Dr. Birx says the latest data is showing her.
Through their detailed studies and showing us what social distancing would do, what would happen if people stayed home, what would happen if people were careful every day to wash their hands and worry about touching their faces, that what an extraordinary thing this could be if every American followed these. And it takes us to that stippled mountain that's much lower, a hill actually, down to 100 to 200,000 deaths. There's no magic bullet. There's no magic vaccine or therapy. It's just behaviors. Each of our behaviors translating into something that changes the course.
Indeed, tonight we are north of 186,000 cases, with nearly 4,000 lives now lost. The death toll now exceeds that of China. Dr. Birx did note that she and Dr. Fauci have started to see some positive effects of social distancing. They also said that those numbers were based on data from the hardest hit locations, and they hope to reduce the number of deaths. Even so, Dr. Fauci was brutally honest when asked about the implications of their projections.
Deaths always lag. So you will be seeing deaths at a time when, as an epidemic, we're doing really, really well because the deaths will lag.
Dr. Fauci, should Americans be prepared for the likelihood that there will be 100,000 Americans who die from this virus?
The answer is yes. We need, as sobering a number as that is, we should be prepared for it. Is it going to be that much? I hope not, and I think the more we push on the mitigation, the less likelihood it would be that number. But as being realistic, we need to prepare ourselves that that is a possibility, that that's what we will see.
A very short period of time for that to happen.
Right.
Can the country handle that in such a short period of time, within a couple of months?
Yeah.
50,000 a month.
You know, it will be difficult. I mean, no one is denying the fact that we are going through a very, very difficult time right now. I mean, we're seeing what's happening in New York. That is really, really tough. And if you extrapolate that to the nation, that will be really tough. But that's what it is.
Now, for his part, and this gets to the tone and demeanor change, Trump warned that the next 2 weeks would be tough, but he then veered off into other topics, including what sounded like a bit of revisionist history.
I mean, I've had many friends, business people with great, actually, common sense. They said, why don't we write it out? A lot of people have said, a lot of people have thought about it. Write it out. Don't do anything. Just write it out and think of it as the flu. But it's not the flu. It's vicious. For whatever reason, New York got off to a very late start. And you see what happens when you get off to a late start. New Jersey got off to, and I think both governors are doing an excellent job, but they got off to a very late start. I want to give people in this country hope. I think it's very important.
It was going to be this severe when you were saying this is under control.
I thought it could be. I knew everything. I knew it could be horrible, and I knew it could be maybe good. As a nation, we face a difficult few weeks as we approach that really important day when we're going to see things get better all of a sudden. And it's going to be like a burst of light, I really think, and I hope.
Just 1 point for the record here. New Jersey's first task force meeting on the coronavirus happened to be on Super Bowl Sunday this past winter.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.